All right, welcome everyone to the Koha Special Interest Group for Circulation, June 6th, 8th, close enough, but welcome everyone. Yeah, I wanted to see, do we have some of our CLAMS people here from last time to see how things were going?
Avery and I are from CLAMS, but I think Eileen was the one who joined you, and she's supposed to be here, so she can report back.
Perfect. Good to hear. And yeah, how's everyone's circulation looking? Koha
Good.
doing what we wanted to?
Not always.
Who's on 2211?
We
Has
are.
anyone
You went first.
officially upgraded already?
We were early adopters. You'll thank us because we've submitted a lot of tickets.
Thank you in advance.
Yeah, what were some of the biggest issues you ran into so far?
A lot of the Bywater had made a number of customizations for us and different facets, and they all seemed to just poof go away. So they had to reinstitute a lot of that stuff for us. And then our catalogers really wanted templates. We're a consortium of 35 libraries, and so those have been installed, and they seem to like those now.
Oh, very nice. So the templates are saving and everything.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, I did hear something about any plugins that were in once that update goes live, it messes them all up.
Yep, definitely.
Lots of stuff broke.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But it's okay.
We have it on our test server right now and have everyone doing some tests before we go live like next week. So hopefully you guys figured all the stuff out already.
Well, I'm sure there's things that we're not using that other people are or whatever, but it's been challenging, but we're getting there. And we actually just met with Bywater this morning, and I asked if this was typical, and they said yes, very typical.
The stuff breaking like that.
Yeah.
Or
and just that many, the volume of tickets, and the interface, it looks very nice now. They've changed the look of it, so.
Definitely, that was the thing I was most excited for, the new look and the new refresh, and just repositioning where everything was, all the buttons are so nice.
Yeah, some of the tools have moved, so don't panic, they're there. They just you just have to find them.
Hey Eileen, how's it going? Welcome.
Thank you. I'm also at CLAMS. Oh, I see it's in my name. Running from one meeting to another.
Yeah. Back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to see how it was going with your fixes we were talking about last time. Did any of those work out for you?
Our systems manager is not here, but as far as I can see, but somebody wrote, like two people wrote different things about a checkout slip just for the transaction that happened. But we're waiting until we get a test server, I think, to make that change. And we were, anticipating the 2211 upgrade too. So we haven't actually used that yet, but we do appreciate it. But I think we're going to, in the fall, talk about a test server where we can try out things.
Yeah, definitely a good idea to have a test server going, just so you don't mess anything up on the other side, just in case. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah.
Have most of you here got a test server? Other than, yeah, I see.
We got like maybe half the people ish. Because there's also just like the Bywater test one that's just like the more general one is also an option.
Oh, one thing we're interested in sponsoring partly. Can I make a plug for this now? There's a bug, of course I don't know the number. we would love to see a digest for notices. Oh, HELM has a test server. We would love to see a digest go to patrons for holds rather than if they have 10 holds that they get like 10 emails. So I don't think that's up on the Bywater development site, but I believe there's one other organization interested in that. But we'd love to, we're willing to sponsor part of it, but not really go halves on it. I think they quoted $5,000 for that, but when that goes up, please take a look at it. It would be really good to have a digest go to patrons a couple of times a day rather than them getting multiple notices. Oh, there's the bug. Okay.
Yeah, I put the bug number in there. We would be interested in something like that too.
Who is that? I didn't say. I haven't got my glasses on.
Bedford.
Oh, Bedford. Okay. So I'm not sure how that works. This is our first financial thing that we're willing to commit to, but I mean, there's so many more that we're just.
You got another participant there, maybe, Eileen.
Who?
NEKLS.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll talk to Nick, I think it is, at Bywater, and then I believe they, or maybe we should all email each other. I don't know. Well, that's great because.
So here's what I suggest if you're going to pursue that with Bywater Solutions, is if they've written a development, if they've gotten you a quote that says this is how much we think it will cost.
Yeah.
And then you get a couple people like me and Barbara that say we're interested in that. The next thing to do is to get in touch with me and Barbara and then have us send you our email addresses and then ask them to put those email addresses onto the ticket. Okay. So that we can all participate in that RT development ticket.
Okay, thank you.
At least that's the way generally I've done it with other libraries in the past.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sounds promising. So rather than getting an email for each hold, it puts them all together.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I have a question about some notices. We use auto renewals. So the patron's getting the auto renewal notice, but we also have the renewal notice going out. And do we need to have both of those going out? And is there a big difference between what the two can or can't do?
Good question.
I thought the auto renewals were system generated, but the renewals were if the patron renewed the item. Or am I wrong in that assumption?
Which our patrons can't renew because everything is auto renew. So yeah, it is going out automatically because they don't have that capability.
Yeah, we turned off our renewal notice and just left the auto renewal on.
Was there a reason just because you felt it was a duplicate or?
Yeah, ours are the same way. We only have auto renewals.
Okay. So
we don't have patrons. Well, I think we have like 32 that have opted out of auto renewals out of 77,000. So we decided to save we were talking a couple weeks ago about, or a couple meetings ago about notices clogging up the server. Right. And being sent out. So that was one of the things we cut immediately was the renewal notice because it serves no purpose. I mean,
that's what I was kind of thinking. And we're looking at, a third party, something like Twilio or something to help with our delivery of notices because patrons are saying, I didn't get that whole pickup notice or I didn't, get notified. And so I'm trying to look at, do we really need to be sending all of these notices, and get that in order before we might use something like Twilio. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we turned it off before we switched over to Message B, which is who we're using to send our notices now.
Does that work just like Twilio, basically? It just does the sending?
I'm not sure how Twilio works, but basically we have the message queue folder is sent over to UMS and they process it and then generate everything out through their server. And the nice thing about their notices are they're customizable. So you can actually put promotional ads on there, or,
Okay.
you know, like if you're, I don't know, closing a branch or opening a branch or starting a new service or summer reading, you can put little ads on there.
So you customize that in Message B itself?
Yes. Yeah, we haven't turned that function on yet. We were just specifically looking just to get the notices up and running.
Right.
So we've been on them a year and some now.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Sure.
Did you see an instant like change in the speed or anything after turning off those notices?
Well, we certainly had a lot less complaints.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, we were having the same problem. People weren't getting notices. We were hitting that like 10,000 maximum notices per day. So they were rolling into the next day, which was rolling into the next day, which caused all kinds of problems, even though we had switched from local service to Amazon service. We decided to go with Message B because they could handle the volume of messages that we send a day. And the nice thing is they're all customized templates, so they all have our logo, they're formatted properly, the footer is all the same on every single message. We just change the colors based on what kind of message that they're getting. But yeah, we've had great results, and the reporting is great too, so I can see like who opened it, when did they open it, how many times did they open it, did it actually get to them, was it bounced, did it fail, why did it fail?
And Rebecca, are you doing that for both email and text?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't have a large text base. It's mostly email. We do have, I think we send out like 2,000 texts a month total. So, and we have our text messages are hold pickup, overdue notice. Both we send a courtesy notice, an overdue notice, and then a really overdue notice by text message. So, and those are kind of generic, you know, it's just like, hey, you have an overdue item, please check your account.
Are you saying Message B?
Mhm.
Okay.
Now, presumably that you have to pay for that. Is it expensive? I mean, you don't have to give me the exact amount, but we use Shoutbomb for texting. It's pretty inexpensive, but they don't do the email part. But if we found something, we have the same issue. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, about, you know, messages not going out. So if we found a service that would do texting and emails, if we continue to have problems, that would be good. I know
Yeah,
that
there was a flat setup fee and then they had the designers helped us set up our notices and get the configuration set up, and they worked with Bywater to get the back end talking to one another. And then we pay a monthly, I think it's a monthly flat fee. I don't remember, to be honest. I'm not responsible for contracts and invoices, just the tech side. So, and I think it's based on the size of your library too. I think the pricing is. And thanks,
no
George.
More, and no more problem with notices not being delivered because of the volume?
No, it's been great. They all go out. So the only notices we send out through the actual Koha server now are account password resets. And I think that's it.
Welcome.
Nope, we send that out through. Actually, we send our welcome notices through another vendor.
Oh.
Yeah, that falls under the marketing team. So yeah, that's another vendor.
So when we went live originally, we were starting to see the failed notices, and we had a report written to catch those so we could kind of have the libraries checking in on those ones. So we had about, it was into the hundreds per day for our consortia of hold pickup notices failing. And then when they had a bug fix in 2211 We just upgraded to that, and that significantly cut down on the issue by like a factor of 10. So we went from like, 500 to like 50 messages, and then maybe a little bit like, but still like on a bad day was be under 100. And I noticed that it's definitely hitting that. We're using Google SMTP, and it's hitting that like rate limit. So it was sort of on days when libraries are, like many libraries are open late and stuff like that, there'd be more failures than on like, maybe like on a Sunday or Monday, less libraries are open and there would be less failures kind of thing. So I reported that, and they just did another fix for us. I'm not really sure of the details of what they did for us, but we'll see how it goes because they just put that through for us.
And that's all to cut down on them bouncing back, like the failing.
Yeah, on the failing. So like they did something to have like a better message queue in 2211.
Okay.
And that did like cut down on a lot of the failing messages, but it's still kind of, they don't want to see, but they can go in and run the report for their library, and they will see like, maybe 15 or 20 on a day that are failing, and they don't want to see that number be, they want that to be 0. So we're we're gonna see if this other fix, how it works, and I'll get the details also for what, it's Liz who did the fix for us.
Oh yeah, keep us posted.
Yeah,
Did you
hopefully,
say,
Yeah,
hopefully we'll
exactly.
see it go down from 50 to 5, maybe. That'd be good.
It's going the right direction.
and Brendan, did you say you have a report you're running to find those failed notices?
Yeah.
Is that something you could share?
Yeah, and maybe I can stick it into the chat, maybe.
Cool.
Let's see. It's a kind of a crazy report because it pulls from the message queue table, and then it uses regular expressions to like pick out the text from the message from the notice itself. So I didn't write this report, but it works. And this is specifically for us, like the main priority was the, I want to make sure I copied the whole thing there. The main thing was the holds pickup notices being the most important. So this report is specific to find those failed. It doesn't find all the notices.
Well, if we get the digest eventually, it will help with this problem too, right?
Yeah, and the digest would definitely help.
Oh, yep, there we
And
go.
part of, I guess, like the part that's like searching for the pieces of the notice, it might depend, you might have to change those functions depending on your notice text to get the.
Yeah, I'll look through it and see how I might be able to adapt it.
Oh, nice. And you like each branch just runs this.
Yeah, so we can run it for the whole network, but it's also like, at least while it was kind of like a stopgap thing to address the issue so that they can run the report and then manually contact the patrons somehow.
If they have
Or,
to.
all the data's in a table there, they could, I don't know, send an email if they wanted, but I think a lot of our libraries were using it to call the patrons.
At least there's a way to catch them, yeah. Cool.
And I guess on a sort of related note is for billing the patrons, like we're interested in seeing how everybody else bills their patrons, and how do you keep track of whether or not the patron was sent a bill. So for a little background, when we went live, we did not have our bills getting, we have our overdue 1 and overdue 2, they get emailed by the system. Then the third overdue notice, we're not emailing because our libraries like to check to make sure they don't have the item on the shelf before they send out a bill. So that's the idea. So Bywater set us up with a plugin called the print overdue notice and bills plugin. And so we can run that plugin, and it generates like a table, and it pulls in like whatever your overdue. We use our overdue 3 as our bill notice text, and it like kind of does a mail merge for all of that, and you can print out the notices. But because it's just a manual process, the system doesn't know that you've billed those patrons. If you've found the item and checked the item in, or if you actually print out the bill and send the bill to the patron. So we were thinking possibly of creating like another authorized value for an item status called like bill sent, and then have when the library staff actually send the bill, they would change the item status from long lost to bill sent, so that we would be able to like report on that and know that those bills were actually sent.
Is anyone else doing that, being super conscientious like that before they bill a patron, that they want to check their shelves? Or, I mean, it probably would be easier if it was automated, but there's a further complication in that our loan rules are based on owning location, not circulation library. The first and second overdue notice go from the circulating library, because, you know, the patrons would go back to that library to return their late items. But the third sort of manual process, that bill is based on the owning location, so that the owning location can check their shelves. So I don't know, that third notice is problematic because they want to check their shelves, which is being super careful, granted. Does anyone else do that, or they just automate the bill?
We don't automate the bill. We actually, we do the 2 notices. I'm at Liberty Lake in Washington State. We are a smaller library. We are part of a consortia, but every library in the consortia do something different. And we send out the 2 overdue notices, and then we send out what we call our lost letter. So we do check the shelf, and then if they're not here, we send a letter saying, hey, this item is lost. We have a spreadsheet. There's only 2 of us that work on it, so that we don't have a lot of hands in it, being a small library. But we have a spreadsheet. We keep track of when we sent them the letter. And after 2 letters, if they don't return it, then our library because we're a municipal library, we send them to collection. If they owe $50 or above, then we send them to collection. But we do a lot of things manually, and we just keep track on a spreadsheet, and it works perfect for us. We check the shelf. If it's there, we check it in, you know, we mark it off our spreadsheet. If they don't, then, you know, we color code our spreadsheet for, you know, if it's a lost letter, if it's a damage, if it's, you know, whatever it is, and just go, you know, we've been doing that for years now, and it works great for us.
We, our first 2 notices are either a text message or an email message. Our third notice is a certified, well, not certified, but it's a mailed letter, and it's actually includes the bill. So we don't have overdue fines. So if it gets to a third notice, they just get billed. Now, if they bring the materials in, you know, they'll get we'll check those items in, but our third notice is their bill, and we do check the shelves. When it gets to the third notice point, we do check.
Yeah, we never
And,
send out a lost letter until we check the shelf.
Yeah.
So when you print out the letter and mail it out, is there anything that you do in the patron record or in the item record to indicate that the bill was sent?
We do. We put a message on the account that a third notice was sent. It's automatically restricted at that point. Their account is already automatic restricted, and then we also block any associated accounts that are guaranteed by that main account. So like if it's a child whose item is, going to get a third notice, we address it to the parent. We block the child's account as well as the parents.
Sure, if we block when we send the bill, I can never remember that. We block if a patron.
If they have more than $25 in fees.
We block our patrons block if it's about $25, but we send out a letter no matter what the amount of the item is. If the item isn't back, we send them a lost letter. And we don't indicate that on the account. We just, the staff knows that, if they have a lost item, we tell them you have a lost item. We don't charge overdue fees either. So we just say, we send them out the letter. It says this item is considered lost. Please return it by 30 days. Otherwise it goes to collection. Not everything goes to collection. Once it goes to collection, then we note it on the account, but we do not note it when we send them, send them a letter, because like I said, we're kind of a smaller library, small staff. So the staff knows, and, we have, being a consortium, we have items from other libraries and that. So, they kind of work with theirs. So we don't necessarily flag saying, hey, third notice, but we do flag for collection. And the other libraries, some of the other libraries in the consortia that send to collection do the same thing.
And I'll just mention that our process is probably archaic at this point, but we are also a consortium, and we don't do, we automate all 3 notices, and then the cleanup happens after the fact. So we have people run the long overdue report, so things go into long overdue for us at 99 days, but we don't have those automatically checking in. So then the library goes in, runs that report. We do use a status, like a bill sent status. Ours is lost and charged. So they'll run the report, they'll mark the item lost and charged, and we have it set up so that at that point it charges the item to the patron's account and checks it in. So we're moving that from a check-in to a bill, basically a charge, which is our indication that the patron has been billed. And we do everything based on the transacting location. So it doesn't matter who owns the or who owns the item. It doesn't matter where the patron's home library is. It matters where the patron was standing when they checked it out. So if that item is owned by another library, at that point when they're marking it lost and charged, they reimburse the owning library. They take the owning library out of the picture so that then when the patron pays for it, there's no need to backtrack or figure out where the money needs to go. So that's sort of a different workflow, but it doesn't totally work because it relies on staff members actually running that report and keeping up with it. And a lot of my really small libraries don't always have the time to do that, but that's how our workflow has been pretty much since the start.
Our system is once the item is lost, long overdue lost, it automatically puts the charge on the card. So
Yeah.
that's how our consortia is set. And then we do send the lost letter for all items. When we send it to collection, it's just our items, but we do send the lost letter and say, hey, these items are, now considered lost, but ours just automatically does it.
And Jason, do you use the plugin?
No, we're just using the notice triggers in Koha and the notice templates, the 3 that it gives you. And generally, my libraries are all different too, but generally it's the third notice also puts a restriction on the account.
Well, that's the
So-
way we used to have it on our old system, so I'm not sure what we're doing now. We're doing the $25 and it's blocked. But I have, on our old system, if something was billed, even if it was only $5, you know, if it was a magazine issue or whatever, they were blocked if they still had an item out. So I don't know. We're going to have to document that because I keep forgetting what we're doing now. I think initially we didn't think that the patron could be blocked automatically when the bill was sent. But from what I'm hearing here now is they can be blocked once they get a bill automatically. So I don't know. We'll have to clarify that.
Yeah, and that's just a checkbox in the notice triggers. Like one of the checkboxes, there's like one for email, one for text, and one to restrict the patron. And a lot of my libraries that have moved to fine free have moved that restriction up to the second notice, just so that there's more teeth, because they don't have teeth in the way of fines. So the restriction happens faster. And then there's a third notice that gets sent.
So
to
where do you
follow
go?
up.
You go in circulation, you go under tools and then
I can show you. Let me share my
I'm sorry,
screen.
probably everybody else in the world knows that.
So yeah, it's under tools, and then this is your overdue notice and status triggers.
So we
So
can check there if we've set it or not. Okay.
right, and it is set at the branch level, like I said, and a lot of my libraries have different things. But generally, the third notice we've checked restrict, and that's when it'll put a restriction on the account and block it entirely, regardless of the cost of the item.
I think we might have that in place.
No, we don't. We
We
don't.
don't? Oh,
We don't have it. And the other thing that I never really understood this, but so we have the way that we have it set up is our first notice goes out 14 days, and that's email. That's all checked email. And we luckily set this up as all of our libraries work the same way. So we don't have to worry about all the stuff that you have to deal with. Second notice, it goes out 28 days, and that's by email. Then the third notice, it's not email box checked, it's the print column is checked. But I don't really understand how to print, because they set up a plugin for us to run the bills. So I just never really understood how that third notice, where we have it is all checked down the print column, how do those get printed?
Those
There was like
they don't get printed.
don't.
So what happens is you have to have the print notice set up in the so where you define the notices, you not only have to have the email notice set up, but you also have to have the print notice set up. And the print notice is mailed as a text file to the library.
Okay, so maybe that 30.
So whatever email address you have set up as the default email address for the library that's sending the notice, that's the email address that's going to receive an email that says, here's all the notices that were not that were set to be printed today. And it comes as one text file for each notice, with all of them set up as a text file, like all together in one text file. So you
and
can
then
get.
they cut and paste into, or they actually mail them, right?
I think the reason why we had to get the plugin set up, and they actually did a small development on the plugin so that we could run it based on the item owning location. Because I think that those letters that can be printed, they showed us what like in the system files, they created a place to see those, but it was like it was all based on the transaction location. So it would be a mix of all different libraries items on the bill, and our libraries
Exactly,
want
yeah.
to send, so that's why it didn't work for us, I think.
Yeah, it kind of, and that can be a difference that you have to deal with at different libraries. I've worked at libraries where the owning library was responsible for collecting when an item goes lost. Here we follow the ILL rule that once the item the library where the item is checked out is the one that's responsible for collecting the payment on a lost item. And so if you, like if my Leavenworth library sends an item to Baser, then, and the patron at Baser loses it, then Baser is responsible for getting the money from the patron, and Leavenworth actually will bill Baser for the cost of the item, not bill the patron directly.
So really that print is like in regular print, when you print to PDF, you're printing to an email that goes to one single email.
Yeah, it takes all of the, like all of overdue notice 1 that is scheduled that day to be printed that don't go out by email. It puts all of those in one file and it sends it. And then it puts all of overdue notice 2 in a second file, and it puts all of overdue notice 3 in a third file. So you get one text file that might have like notices for like 12 different patrons in it. And you have to go in and kind of format it to the way you like it. Because it's just going to come as one big blob of text, essentially.
That's very reassuring to find out that most people, when they're sending the bill, there's like manual intervention, checking the shelves and everything. We're not the only ones. The only caveat we have or difference that I can see is the first 2 notices are from the CERC library, and the third notice is the owning library. And sometimes that confuses patrons, because patrons are like, I never borrowed this from Martha's Vineyard. I go to Pianist Library, but there must be something to indicate that in the bill text, probably. I don't know, but that is reassuring that we're not the only ones doing that build portion, a mix of automation and manual.
Then our payments, we can take payments for the Idaho libraries, we're part of a consortium with Idaho, and we send the money to them. If it's their item, we send the money to them. They do the same with us. If it's our item, they send the money to us for the lost item. And because we don't take overdue fines, but when we were doing those, it was whoever collected the overdue fines, they kept it, but the lost item money just goes. We either take it to the meeting if we go in person, or if we're on Zoom, we just send it in a very well protected in our shipment. But
Yeah, that's what we do too, because patrons tend to pay at the library they borrowed from.
Yeah.
The money goes back to the owning location.
Right.
We have about 7 libraries that still charge fines, which is interesting with the loan rules. But yeah, most of our libraries are fine free. We do something similar like that. And even the libraries that fine, I don't know, the way we used to do it when everybody was charging fines was, you know, if it was over $20 that you received in fines, which was unlikely, you might, you know, it was up to you if you sent it to the owning library, but usually the CERC library kept it. I wish they would all just go fine free, but that's a battle for another day. But we can't really dictate them because they're all independent libraries in a consortium who answer to their towns and so on, or a board. So, you know, they have to make the decision themselves about if they want to go fine free.
I try to find ways to shame the libraries that still charge fines to make them feel bad about the fact that they still do that. So.
Yeah, like any opportunity I get, I'm always like, well, we only have a handful of libraries that still charge fines, but we said we'd keep out of it. But there's another network in Massachusetts. They're not on koha, but they got everyone stop fining. So I'm deeply envious.
It's a discussion at the beginning of meetings awfully. And remember, if you want to see which libraries still charge fines, run this report and it will show you which libraries still have fines.
Well, what the patrons are doing is they're bringing back the stuff to a library that doesn't charge fines. But then if they ever go back to their home library, it probably shows up. Although I think they can waive the fines at the non-fining libraries, but it's too bad they all don't go.
Yeah, that's how it's over here at our consortium. Each library has their own circ rules and fine rules, so we're kind of just at the whims of them.
So I have like a weird policy type question that came up yesterday. One of my libraries wants to stop keeping paper registration forms because we had this big privacy audit discussion at our last users group, and they decided there's no reason to keep that after they've signed up and we've entered the data, but they do want to keep like a signature of what they signed and agreed to, so that if they ever need to reference that to say, hey, you agreed to like be responsible for those items you're checking out. So I know we can add attach files to patrons in Koha, which we're planning to do. But the concern was that, and it's a consortial thing, that like other libraries could get in and see the signature, and if we get a bad actor, they could like start a forgery ring from another library's repository of signatures. So I feel like our patron confidentiality and security policy covers that, but I guess my idea was to only allow the libraries that are storing those to see that files tab for their patrons, which I've already jQueried up. So the question is, like, do you do anything special with signatures? Are you storing signatures in Koha at all?
You know, I've worked at several libraries where there is no paper application process at all. And here in Lawrence, you don't even fill out a paper application. You just go, and they're not on Koha, but they're on, I guess when I got my card, they were still on Symphony. They say, oh, well, then go over to this computer and click on this button, and you just fill out essentially the self-registration form. And then they say, and when you're done filling that out, come over here to this station and we'll finish the process. I know that Christopher has a different take on it, and I see that he's in the meeting because they actually went from not keeping stuff to keeping paper applications. So
yeah, we have a few libraries that do keep paper. We were paperless in the beginning, and then the city decided, oh, we need to retain these kinds of documents for just applications. So now we're filing those away, unfortunately, and it made self-registration a little wonky. So what we ended up doing is I used to hijack. I added to the patron details screen. There's a menu where if your library requires you to retain this information, you can go into the print slips menu, and I've added another option in there that's all coded through jQuery where they can print off if you're a self-registered patron. So if you're in self-registered category, this item will appear, and you can click on it, and it'll print out the patron information and fields that we need to fill out that aren't collected at self-registration time. You know, do they want to sign up for a newsletter, or you know, just some oddball stuff. Prints out on a slip. We print that slip, hand it to the patron, have them review the information to make sure that everything is correct. And there's a line at the bottom. It has our agreement that we have at the bottom of our regular paper applications. They read that and they sign it just like they would if they had filled out a paper application. And then we store that along with the regular applications. So and then we update the account from there. Yeah, it's fun.
when you initially started doing that, didn't you tell me that part of it was because that way you've got a piece of paper that says wasn't one of the part of the logic behind it when a patron comes and they say, why did you let my kid check out this book? And you've now got a piece of paper with a signature on it that says, you know, that my child is authorized to check out books from the library.
You know, it's been a while. I can't remember that being part of it. I know it was more city mandated. They might have done it because of that. I don't remember. But yeah, they're just trying to, yeah, you know, now that you mention it, I think there were 1 or 2 instances where there was a complaint and city legal decided, well, we just need to retain this stuff. So just to cover
Yeah,
your
and
bacon.
that's kind of where we're at. I think there's like a legal precedent for it. Because when the patron signs up for a card, they're signing that contract with the library to say that they're responsible for those materials. And a lot of my libraries do that, a lot of them don't. And we actually have it like on the back of the patron card where when they sign the back of the patron card, they're agreeing what they're agreeing to when they sign up for a card. But some of my libraries want to store that documentation in Koha as well. And I don't see a major problem with it, especially if we're only letting the home library see their own level of signatures. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue, but I just wanted to see if anybody had any stricter policies on that. So
We
thank
do
you.
something, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say with the receipt printer paper, the only problem I see with that is that how long does that ink stay on that paper for? So you're gonna have a bunch of papers that just have signatures with no agreement on them.
We don't know yet. I mean, you know, receipts are finicky. I mean, if they'll change according to heat, and
Yeah,
if you're keeping them in a file, then you're less likely to lose that. I haven't seen filed things fade, but you know, we do have spine labels that have faded because they're exposed to the light and heat and stuff. So I think, you know, if it's stored properly, it could last, but you know, only time will tell.
yeah.
What I'm hearing is
Lasts
don't
for
put
about 3 years.
don't put that filing cabinet next to the radiator in the sunny room next to the window.
Thermal paper receipts last about 3 years, and then everything starts to fade.
So, Jason, I may have missed the start of this, or lost my concentration. So are you saying that you can store, you know, when somebody signs the physical paper, you can store that signature in the patron record?
Yeah, I can show you.
Equal or J, whatever you mentioned.
Yeah, no, the actual functionality is there. So I've got it on my test server here turned on. It's just a system preference. I have to search the patron, not the catalog though. Which adds this files option to every patron account, and then you can store things on the account, each individual account. So what we're talking about is taking that, and the patron would sign the paper form, they'd scan it in and then attach it to the account, so that if they ever needed that document later, if something came up and they needed to reference it, they could. The jQuery part that I adjusted was, so this is an Iola patron and I'm logged in as Iola. If I go over to a different branch, then that files menu goes away. Although I'm still on that page, so, but you can't get to it from the menu link over here. If I go to a colony patron, then the file menu would show up again because the home library would match the logged in library.
And that avoids anything you were talking about
it prevents most cases of access, unauthorized access to those files. And the system preference is I just enable borrower files. And again, that is like a system wide. There's no branch by branch option there. But I think it's something that we're going to try. because it does cut down on storage of physical documents. We found out a lot when we talked about privacy at the users group. I mean, like even here at the library that we're housed in, they've just got 2 drawers full of little index cards full of signatures and personal data, and they're not even locked. So like the janitor can come up and pull things out and do stuff. So like we do have a lot of work to do, but I'm encouraged that my libraries are thinking about it and thinking about things that maybe they don't really need to keep, and just trying to leverage Koha more for that sort of stuff.
I do have one library that's been using the files tab. I haven't got it locked up like you do, because I've always figured that it's kind of included in our annual privacy and confidentiality statement that every staff member that volunteered every library is supposed to sign on to. But I like the jQuery you've written, and I'll probably go in and look at borrowing it. So.
We use the files tab for waivers for our library of things. Patrons who are Bedford residents are allowed to check out libraries of things. So we keep the waiver as a file on their account. And it's turned out to be really a useful tool. I'm now using it for correspondence that I need to keep a permanent file on. You know, we've got some people who are less than perfect patrons, and so I'm keeping records of those. Also, we've had some ex-patrons that we've trespassed, and I'm keeping their pictures on a file if they have a library card in the event that they come back in, because we do have some not so nice people. So
It actually sounds kind of interesting, because I'm at an academic library and we don't actually loan much technology, but I know some other libraries loan technology and the students have to fill out the contract and everything like that. So that might be something that could be stored as well.
Mary also uses it for when we get damaged items back and they're just, you know, really awful. And the CERT staff will, you know, take pictures, because we've had people say, you know, no, I didn't turn it, you know, completely waterlogged. And then we can show them, this is how it came back to us, you know, so we can show them the evidence. Yes, you did turn it in this way.
yeah, last month I mentioned the cockroach situation. So I took some pictures of the cockroaches that were crawling in the books. It was great.
The discussion of Christopher mentioned his jQuery about creating the self-registration slip. I put a link to the video we did on that in the chat box if anybody's interested. And the thing I've heard from patrons, from a patron about damage to an item, but it wasn't my card that ran the book over.
I had a guy turn in a book yesterday that had no cover. All of the corners were eaten. And it took some investigation just to find out what book it was, because it was in such bad shape. And I can't even imagine. I mean, I know a dog or something ate this book, but dog owner, I would have come to the desk and say, hey, my dog ate this book, but not just put it in the, you know, on our AMH and, you know, expect us to like take it. It was, I can't wait for him to call me back and tell me it was like that when he checked it out.
Oh shoot. Oh, I put my jQuery in there, but my snarky notes in there too. Sorry, ignore that.
Well, sweet, everyone. It looks like we're about at that time. Yeah, thanks for coming out, everyone. Good stuff. The next one should be July 13th. So throw that on the calendars, and yeah, come with questions, come with comments, and we'll see you all next month.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.